When I was a little boy, I always loved the sound of a thunderstorm, almost just as much as most little boys loved the sound of an ice cream truck. My mother always told me that I was different. Said, "My darling, you are a hummingbird in a crow's nest. A butterfly with eagle wings, you prey and feast. Off of the sound of silence like vulture you walk, humming to the tune of thunderclap acoustic drifts, kicking up a poetic dust of harmonica shells in the wind, with gunpowder on your breath, a bag full of some leftover novelty crops stuck between your teeth, and two bombs still strapped to your side like Alaska said son every time you speak. It often feels an awful lot like other people's footsteps shaking the earth back awake. With a pocket full of bottle rocket wind instruments, a jar full of Colorado mountain napkin poem sparks, and a California tree full of songbirds that were written by the riverside of a firstborn's eye view of a snow globe, quite frankly. I guess I just never really trusted much of anyone else to ever poke enough holes in the lid. You gorgeous earthquake, you have a heart of gold. My darling, you have a mind that was made by the hands of a priceless artifact. You are that priceless artifact. You are my favorite painting in the museum, and I am your biggest fan. You are the man in the white suit that carries his throat around the way soldiers tote pistols. You are the boy with the voice box full of feather pens, war tanks, missile heads, and fighter planes. You are a loose cannon in the middle of a minefield. A glass house of a bullet wound, laced with a round of masterpieces from past lovers. You are a lamb that is not afraid to sleep with the lion in the lion's den. You live off of the fat of the land. You are a coat of many colors, soaked in a bucket full of God's promise, built in His image, bathed in backbone and ink spots. Your spirit breathes with heaven's accent. My God, what a beautiful sense of dialect. Your heart beats an orchestra sown from an Alaskan sunrise, a Sahara Desert snowflake surrounded by a sandstorm of broken fingers, sprained ankles, and a pair of stuttering footprints sitting cross-eyed and crooked said, "But when you were born, the doctors told me that your heart was a broken record player playing backwards while stuck on repeat, said that you were not supposed to live. Error. To doctrine. Error. Lasex. Error. Error. Heart rate malfunction. Error. Operation table rerouting error. Operation table reset." That night, we put our faith where our mouth was, because for every time that someone ever spoke of impossible, I only ever heard miracle. 7 years later, I hit the ground running. I hit the pavement. At age 8, I began walking in circles, listening slowly with the holy ears that clutch on to the first sign of God, speaking in silence, creating symphonies beneath each step, chasing my dreams over years while pins sewed strings, crocheting riverbeds of ocean throat from the gentle fragments of my imagination, resting in the bottom right-hand corners of a heart pounding brutally beautiful, with hands that shake poetically tragic, found somewhere between a midnight weeping willow whisperer of a daydream and sleepy-eyed sky before morning. At age 9, I traced firecracker fingertips with a shrapnel of hand grenades and bomb shelters just waiting for the Big Bang. Most days, I just called it inspiration. A day later, I held a hurricane under an avalanche, just long enough to tie ropes around rain clouds, make a rainbow out of a hailstorm, pack a backpack full of doves with their halos, paint brushes with sharpened pencil tips, plenty of lead with ink in it, and a cup full of watercolored acid drops. I always wanted to paint this world beautiful. When I was 12, I carved lips out of gun barrel into bullet shells, from little boy toy soldiers in chamber, holding my tongue by the toe tips of a trigger happy ending, being cradled by the gun point of a punchline, from all of those nights that I spent wrapping my thoughts in a slow tornado of telephone poles and telescopes. Poets, we are all just hippies, just trying to piece together the road maps that lead back to the dusty barefooted backroads of where we came from. I am not the only child that grew up this way. For example, in my younger days, people would tell me that I reminded them a lot of my father by the time that I was 17. Honestly, I never quite understood why, due to the fact that around that particular time of my life, I was never anything less than more than a fistful of overdose and antidepressants. At age 18, I cried a third suicidal of open casket, as my mother told her, said, "See, Mom, remember all the smiles with the honey? They left me looking like a slit wrist while downing a fifth of Tombstone, mixed with busy strip malls and overcrowded highways. But then again, I guess we all just grew up in different directions. At age 21, I was a cigarette wrapped in a body bag of bad habits. 2 years later, was 1 year sober. So, on my 23rd birthday, I celebrated by falling in love with blank pages forever ago, the same way that Van Gogh fell in love with canvas, the first time that his fingers ever calloused a paintbrush. At age 25, I realized that my lungs were the anthem to the broken hearts of a starving country, realized that I look at microphones the same way a mother looks at playgrounds beneath war zones with trembling hands, while our government stands idly by, said that we have all made sacrifices, that we all will always have questions that we may never know the answers to. So, at age 26, I began asking myself that if demons were once angels and monsters were never humans, does that mean that ever since the prefix of our first breaths taken, that we were all called to be fishers of men and born to fly? If our hearts were never at some point in time wild creatures, then why would God have ever thought to build our ribs like cages in the Garden of Eden? And if we were meant to be like Christ, then when Jesus was a little boy, he was different too.